Hi, this is Edward Troxel. In this tutorial we're going to continue where we left off on the previous tutorial, where we had figured out which effect to look at, which property in that effect to look at, and the keyframe range that we wanted to look at. So now we're going to look at how to choose which of the easings we're going to use, display the picture of that easing, and then go ahead and do the actual adding of the easings itself. So let's take a look at as we continue on building this custom command. So now we're going to look at this combo box right here and see what it takes to display the picture into this picture box. So if I double click on this combo box, we will see that we have a small little section here for when the selected index changed. And what we want to do is get the text from that combo box, and that is going to be our easing style. And then if our selected index is greater than 0, we're going to go back and use this my path that we passed in a couple weeks ago to the subroutine. So our image path is going to be get the directory name from the path where our plugin is located, plus our directory separator character, plus if you remember our folder name was easing types. Then we're going to add the path separator again, then the easing style, which is the name of the image, and then we're going to add .png at the end. Then we're going to set our picture image location equal to that image path, and then we are going to make that image visible. If the index was 0, if the first thing was picked, then we are going to simply make that image to be not visible. So that way we'll just hide the image when we're not using it. And then finally we have this apply keyframes. And this is where most of the work is actually coming into play. So here's our apply keyframes.click routine. This time we're actually changing the timeline, so we have to use an undo block. So I chose using undo block, undo equals new undo block, and then this is the text that is going to show up in the undo list. So it will say add easing keyframes. Then just to make sure that everything is okay, I want to make sure that my effect list selected index is not 0, my selected effect is not null. I want to make sure that my easing style selected index is not 0, and I want to make sure that my keyframe selected index is not 0. So if any of these are true, if any of these are 0 or null, then I'm just going to return and do nothing. Otherwise, I'm going to continue and process these keyframes. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my OFX parameter, which I called my parm, and I set that to null. And then I'm going to go through each parameter in the selected effects parameters, and I have to find that parameter. So once I found the parameter, then I'm going to get my parm and set it to the parameter that I found that matches. Then I'm going to get an OFX keyframe, left and right. Then I'm going to get my OFX double 2D keyframe, which I'm calling left 2D and right 2D. And then an OFX double keyframe, which I'm calling a left D and a right D. And then I have my two parameters, one for a double and one for a double 2D. So these are P1 and P2. So if my parameter is a double, then I'm going to set my double parameter to an OFX double parameter. Then I get the left keyframe from my double parameter, which is the selected index -1. Then I get the right keyframe, which is the selected index. And then I convert those keyframes into a double keyframe. So my left D is converted to a double keyframe from left, and my right D is converted from a double keyframe from right. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing, only this time if it's a double 2D. So now I'm going to use all of the 2D parameters. So my P2 is a 2D parameter, so I convert my parameter to the 2D parameter. Then I get my left and my right the same as I did above, but this time I'm going to do the left 2D and right 2D are OFX double 2D keyframes from the left and the right. So I put an invert variable here that I'm just setting to false at the moment. I just wanted to throw that in there as future option if we wanted to invert how this works. So it would basically invert the y value. Then I've got a multiplier x and a multiplier y that I'm setting to 1. Then I set my start time code equal to the left keyframe dot time, the end time code equal to my right keyframe dot time. Then my start frame is going to be my start time code dot frame count. My ending frame will be my ending time code dot frame count. Then I need to set up some variables. So I've got an OFX double 2D variable, which is going to be my starting location. And then another one, which is going to be my ending location. Then I have some double variables. This will be my starting location, and this will be my ending location. Then I have a start x value, which is going to be a double, a start y value that's going to be a double, an ending x value that's going to be a double, and an ending y value that's going to be a double. So when we have our double 2Ds, we're going to look at the x and the y, and both of those are just doubles. So now we need to come down and check to see what kind of parameters we have. So if this is a double parameter that we're going to be adjusting, then we're going to set our P1D equal to our left D dot value, our P2D equals to our right D dot value. So this is the double keyframe. Then so our start X is going to be 0. Our ending X is going to be our ending frame minus our start frame. Because when we're looking at a double parameter, we are only looking at changing a single parameter. So our X value is going to be our frame count. So we're going to start our frames at 0 and end our frames at the number of frames that we have. Then our start Y value is what's going to actually be changing between the two keyframes. So our start Y is going to be our starting value from our double keyframe, which we set right here. And our ending Y is going to be our ending value that we set right here from our right keyframe. Now naturally we could have just put these two down here instead, but I thought this might explain better where these values are coming from and what they were doing. Then if it's a double 2D, then we have to look at both values. So our starting left value is going to be this keyframe. Our starting right value is going to be this keyframe, so we get the value of the keyframe, and these are keyframes. So our starting X value is going to be the left keyframe dot X. Our starting Y value is going to be our left keyframe dot Y. Our ending X will be our right keyframe dot X. Our ending Y will be our right keyframe dot Y. Now I needed to see how much is our X value going to change. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the absolute value of the end minus the start. And the reason for taking the absolute value is to make sure that this is positive, because I always want this to be a positive number. Then I'm doing the same thing for the Y. I'm taking the absolute value of the end Y minus start Y, and I want that to be a positive number. However, if our end X is less than our start X, then I need to change my multiplier to a -1. And the same thing with the end Y. If it's less than our start Y, then we change our multiplier Y to -1. That will handle if would have had a negative number if we had not taken the absolute value. Then our frame length is going to be our end frame minus our start frame. And then we're going to do our for loop for each of the frames that we're going to be working on. Our X value is going to be my frame divided by frame length. And then we're going to get our Y value by processing the formula. Then if we have the invert set, our Y value is going to be 1 minus that formula. And also, when we call the formula, up here we're calling X value, but if we're going to invert it, then we're going to call it 1 minus the X value as well. For our double, we want our set X position, which is going to be our X value, times our X change, times our multiplier, plus our starting X value. Then for our set y, we are going to have our y value times our y change times our multiplier times our start y. And then we're going to get our time code, which is going to be from frames, which is our start frame, plus the current frame that we are processing. So now, if this is a double, all we have to do is set our value y at this time code. If this is a double 2D, then we get our 2D parameter, get our 2D value, change the x of the 2D value to our set x, change the y of our 2D value to set y, and then we can set the parameter to this OFX 2D value. Now the only thing that we haven't seen is this process formula. So if we go down below to this process formula, we are going to get which formula we are using by looking at our easing style text. That's the same text that we looked at to fill in the picture. So I'm creating a variable here to get the result in, and then we're going to use a switch. And our switch is going to look at that formula name that is in this box up here. So if it was an ease in sign, then we are going to call our ease in sign, get our result, and pass it the input that was passed here. So we get our input, here's our result variable. So we pass it the input, call the routine, and it comes back into the result value, and then we break out of this switch case. Likewise, if it was an ease out sign, we do the same thing. So every one of these is exactly the same. And we have one entry for every option. And then we have a default option down here at the bottom, which is in there just in case it didn't find anything. There should be no reason it doesn't find anything, because the only entries we put in there are these names that are listed. And anyway, you need to have the default option on the switch. And then when that returns the result back to the calling routine. And then of course we have to have a routine for each one that we are calling. So here's the ease in sign routine, the ease out sign routine, the ease in out sign routine, and so forth. We have one routine for each one that can be called. So now let's build this, and we will copy it over. So if we go to, so I have this under Documents, Scripts. This is just where it is on my system. It's under Vegas 19, Keyframe Easings. And here is my Keyframe Easings DLL that I just compiled. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back to Documents. Then I'm going to go to Vegas Application Extensions. Paste this there. And of course I already have the easing types with all the pictures in it already there. So now I can start Vegas. I have a little test project that I'd created that I'll open up. This one has two effects on it. It only has the center of vignette with multiple keyframes, and my cursor is between those keyframes. To find this plugin, I now go to Edit, Extensions, and here is my Keyframe Easings. So now I have this event selected. I can choose Find Selected Event, and it tells me that this is my video ending clip, and it's Event 1 on track 1. And then I can choose the effect I want to choose. So if I choose Picture in Picture, it says select the desired parameter, so I can select a parameter. Then it says select the desired range, and it says there's not enough keyframes on this parameter. If I choose Vignette, and I choose Center, which is the one that I had changed, here are my list of keyframe options, but you notice it automatically selected the one that the cursor was between. Now I can go through and pick which one of these that I want to use. So let's choose Ease In Bounce, which is the one we've been testing with in the other script. And then I can click on Apply Keyframes. So now when I come over here and click on the effects, you will see that we have keyframes all the way through here. And so let's move our cursor back to here, and if I play the timeline, you can see that it is bouncy. So if I undo that, let's try ease out bounce. Find the selected event, vignette, center. There's our keyframe range. This is ease out bounce this time. Click on keyframes. And now when we look at this, it falls, bounces, and goes over to the end location. So now we have a fully functional custom command that can add any of these 30 or so easings between two keyframes, and it will either work with the regular double or the 2D doubles. And so this makes it a little more flexible in that it can work with both. And I will upload this so that you guys can download it and put it on your systems and give it a try. Let me know what you think of it. Let me know what changes you'd like to see made to it, and we can look at making some more tutorials on some additional changes. For example, one change that really needs to be made that I haven't done yet on this one is right now you can select any effect. Technically, we should only be able to choose the OFX effects because those are the only ones we can work with. So that might be a good thing to add in a future tutorial. Hope you like this, and let me know what you think, and let me know what you'd like to see. See you in the next tutorial. Please sign up at www.JETDV.com and subscribe on YouTube to get further notifications on when new videos are presented.